Okay, so I wanted to ask you a question. Generally speaking, okay, based on your experience learning, well, two foreign languages, technically,
Okay.
if somebody is a beginner, knows maybe only, let's say, 500 most commonly used words. Okay, that's somewhat, I mean, they would probably understand what we are saying, but then they may not be able to, converse properly. Uh, what would be, I mean, what would you suggest to them, like an action plan, so that they can go from, let's say, an A1 level all the way to maybe a C1 level?
So are we talking about English here?
Yeah, English.
Okay. See, when I think of a student who has a very confined vocabulary, who has a very limited lexical resource, I picture this student as someone who is scared,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
See, when you have less resources, you are not you don't feel safe enough. You don't feel sure of yourself. You
Hmm.
kind of conserve what you have,
Hmm.
right? It's only when you have abundant, when you have abundant information, when you have abundance, that you feel like expressing,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So
You
when
are
I
more
see
confident also at that time.
exactly, so when I see a student who has less lexical resource, I see the student who would not feel like expressing. He
Hmm.
would feel, okay, I just have these many words. What would I be? What would happen if I would be judged? And would I be able to frame a sentence knowing these many words?
Hmm.
How would I frame this sentence where I don't know how to say this, or what this word is called in English? So
Hmm.
this kind of a complex is very, very common, and it's really, really, really important for the teacher to understand that the student would be very fearful, would be very
Hmm.
scared of
Yeah,
expressing,
yeah.
right? At this level, it's really important for a teacher to tell the student to express any way,
Hmm.
to even use the most basic, the most fundamental word he has for it,
Hmm.
and not look for something fancy.
Hmm. Of
Students,
course.
out of the fear of expressing and out of the pressure of impressing somebody with the speech, they do not produce the speech at all. They don't
Yeah,
produce any speech.
yeah.
So at this level, it is very important to tell them that, okay, be comfortable with whatever words you know and
Hmm.
express.
Yeah.
Another thing which is very important in this part, where the student is actually trying to cope up with this lack of words, is be very open to noting down stuff.
Hmm.
I generally tell my students, they would be like, they would understand. You see, you say, as you said, they understand. If they have 500
Yeah,
words, these 500 words are actually a part of their active vocabulary.
yeah.
But all of us actually have a passive set of vocabulary also,
Hmm.
which we do not use necessarily, but we
Hmm.
understand,
Yeah,
right? We don't use this word. We don't even get ourselves to use these words. Probably we're not comfortable. Probably we don't know the exact context,
yeah,
or probably we're not just in the habit of
yeah,
using them.
yeah.
So I what I tell my students is that you need to realize one thing is, and that is, you do not have a chip here.
Hmm.
So you cannot expect yourself to be storing all of that information. Whatever the other guy is saying, you might understand that, but your brain cannot retain it.
Yeah,
You have to note it down.
yeah,
Things you cannot speak actively, it's because it's not a part of your active vocabulary.
yeah.
You have to make it a part of your active vocabulary. So that is only by noting stuff down. Okay, what expression did you use here? I
Hmm.
don't say that ever. Could you just repeat? Such an attitude.
Yeah.
This is what takes a student from A1 and progressively to C1.
Okay, so but then those are like two things. Apart from that, can you think of anything else? Like maybe things that can help somebody, not only for speaking, but other things also, other skills also. So could be reading,
um,
writings, and listening also.
when you talk about other parts of the language, see, for me, since I'm a spoken English teacher, for me expression is of great importance. It's of
Hmm.
great importance. This is something that gives the child or the student confidence.
Hmm.
Expression, the language expression, it's see, someone who reads something might not feel as confident as someone who can speak something,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
When I say reading, when I say listening, these two things are actually a part of staying in touch with the culture. You see,
Right.
when I listen to the language, it's not just the language that I acquire, it's also the culture that I let imbibe in myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When I see a movie, right, I'm also getting, the plot of the movie and the dialogue and stuff, but I'm also letting in some values of the culture. We need this cultural aspect in order to learn a language. So yes, all these things are required, this reading stuff and listening to the stuff related to that language, to uh, strengthen your command over the language, because this way the language doesn't seem foreign to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
The more I listen to French music, no, the more I'll be comfortable with my French teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
I won't treat her like an alien. I'd be like, I listen to your music. I listen to
Yeah.
the music of your country.
Yeah.
I have seen a series. I have seen an actress, a francophone actress, and I know that this particular singer is she's a francophone. So it's only when you start reading about in the language that you get introduced to the culture, that makes the language more comfortable. You get a comfort zone there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask you one more question, couple of other questions. So, if you go on Instagram or you go on YouTube or just do a Google search for English lessons, you are going to, you're going to come across so many websites and pages and channels that do daily vocabulary lessons, and they give you words that, as you said, they become part of your passive vocabulary. But something like, for example, you don't know how to speak, how to converse properly, like at least in a manageable way with somebody else, but you are learning words that maybe Shashi Tharoor would use.
Nobody
So
uses the word he uses. I don't.
yeah, so that's what, like, we don't use those words, but then it's fun to listen to. But then I've seen so many Instagram pages that are dedicated to teaching English that do word of the day, and those words are all C2 level words. If I do a search for them on, let's say, Cambridge Dictionary or Oxford Dictionary, they're all labeled as C2 words.
Okay, okay.
But then the learner who's learning those words is maybe a B1 or an A2 level learner. Okay, how do you think does that learning those words play out in like grand scheme of things for the learner?
Okay. You know what I have seen is you get to see these words. You know what? It's not in the speaking. Honestly, I have seen my teaching experience. What I've seen is these words that these students acquire from internet or from a fancy book, probably. They try to put that into writing first,
Yeah.
because you know what, writing is still it's not that direct a form of expression as speaking is.
Yeah.
So the students are smart, they play safe. They do not want to experiment that word right there on your face. They
Yeah.
will slide it somewhere in a paragraph in an essay that I asked them to write. And I'm like, where did you read humongous? And why would you call his hand humongous? Like, and he's like, I read it for big, and it's like a synonym to big. This is where it causes problems, because the students try to fit in the word as per their understanding of the
Yeah.
word. So here, what I tell the student is, for the larger picture, I fear that time where the student has read words and misunderstood the context and is using very confidently and
Yeah.
is being laughed at.
Yeah.
I don't want my students to reach there. So
Yeah.
what I tell them is that these words are not synonyms.
Yeah.
My main sentence. These words are not synonyms. These are references.
Yeah. What do you
Okay,
mean by references?
like a word which could be closer to that word, but it's not
Okay.
exactly that word.
So
Like,
associated words.
yeah, these are the words which are associated to it. Like, if you start exaggerating a word, right?
Yeah.
If you look for some other possible ways that some other things could be explained. So these are the words meant for that. For example, I give you a very, very, very easy example for this. Students would come across a word called masses.
Okay.
Okay.
How do you spell that?
Masses, masses.
Okay.
Okay.
Masses. Okay. Yeah.
So I would see students using the word masses for people, and they would say, but I read masses as a synonym to people. I
People.
think it's perfectly fine to use it. And I'm like, no, sweetie, you cannot. Because masses means when people are like in bulk, like,
Yeah.
you can't say masses think that it's important to legalize marijuana, you know,
Yeah.
because not a lot of people, not like a whole big
Yeah.
crowd of people think that. It's just your mind that tells you it's people. But when you go in the detail of this word, you see
Yeah.
it's not, it's actually representing people, but it is representing a very, very large set
Large
of
group
people.
of people. Yeah.
Again, this is what needs to be told. So
Yeah.
again, the help of a guru, the help of a teacher who makes you recognize where a word
Yeah.
doesn't make sense and where it would be apt.
Yeah. So context based learning is very important, not just
Very much.
learning, not just this word, the one, like 10 synonyms of, let's say, big, massive, humongous, and all those. And then people use those terms randomly wherever they please. And that doesn't actually make sense in
Right,
that case,
right.
because every word has a certain intonation to it, every word has a certain degree to it, every word has a certain context to it. Because I've
Yeah.
seen this same thing on WhatsApp. I'm part of some groups, some language learning groups.
You're pretty resourceful, I must say.
I well, before I started my YouTube channel, I did a bit of
Some,
research. So I joined a couple of groups, and I keep seeing there are people who post words like these are like they would think these are synonyms of something else, as you mentioned, but then these don't fit the context.
they don't.
And that's I think just looks, when you read it, it just looks odd.
Bizarre.
Yeah. Exactly.
But you know
Exactly.
what? The best way actually is to make the student speak about it. You don't know what a student is learning outside your classroom setting.
Yeah.
Students again are, they are resourceful as well. They are curious about learning the language at a
Yeah.
fast pace as well, so they won't be confined to what resources or what material you are providing them. Of
Hmm.
course, students like to go out and see, there's, they feel that there is a world of knowledge out there that they need to explore. But of
Hmm.
course, they cannot selectively learn, right?
Yeah.
It's only the teachers who can guide them to learn, selectively. So
Hmm.
students must remember the fact that you should, even if you first they should like try to, if they come across a word, what I tell the student is to go and look for the definition of the word
Hmm.
itself,
Hmm.
read a sentence about it, see, is it the kind of sentence that you are trying to make, or is
Hmm.
the sentence giving a completely different sense altogether.
Right.
Then, even if after doing your homework around the word and seeing what you can do about it, you cannot figure out, talk to your teacher, talk to
Hmm.
someone who knows, who has a better level than you
Yeah.
have in the language. Probably drop them a message on WhatsApp, see if this person reaches out to you, or contact an old teacher of yours, you
Hmm.
know who could guide you with it. Once you develop such kind of a curiosity, such kind of an inquisitive nature, where you are thinking before you leap,
Yeah.
this actually helps you develop in the language.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. And you know, when so I remember in one of your videos, you were talking to somebody, and you told them, the person was mentioning that the person mentioned that they cannot think in English. And you said that when we begin, we always think in our mother tongue, our native language. And you mentioned that you cannot think right of the, right at the beginning in English. So once reach a particular level, do you think it is? I mean, when people are unable to, the way I see it, when people are unable to think in English, they would probably watch. They would probably, refer to something like a bilingual dictionary. They would probably go and listen to people who are teaching English in their mother tongue, maybe Bengali or Punjabi or Hindi or Tamil, Telugu, any other language. But then, do you think that after attaining a certain level of proficiency in English, maybe B1 or B2, they should stop using bilingual resources and instead switch to monolingual resources?
Well, I totally agree to you. I would actually agree to you clearly, because this is what my experience has been with language. There is a point in language acquisition process where you have heard a lot of language, you have read a lot of material, you have skimmed through pages, you have recognized sentence structure. This is the time where you have even started including expressions phrases in your speech. We don't expect it from beginners to introduce some idioms, some
Yeah.
fancy terms,
Yeah.
something latest in
Yeah.
their speech. This is the point where you are actually confident with your own set of words, and you have read a lot. This is the point where I think, yes, one should stop using references from his or own personal language. Why? Because it actually creates a lot of it creates a lot of discord in terms of the structure of the two languages.
Mm-hmm.
Two languages are two languages only because they have differences in them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? They have their individual set of words, individual set of expressions, and even grammatical structure.
Yeah.
So at this point where you have reached the maturity in the language where you can understand anything and everything, and you can even use it, you should actually start treating the language as an individual language. Why?
Definitely.
Because otherwise there will be a lot of scope for confusion.
Hmm.
Otherwise there will be a lot of scope for mistakes. You probably would use some reference from your own personal language that doesn't apply to the same language,
Yeah. Yeah.
to the foreign language.
Yeah.
So yes, when I advance from teaching, see, I teach French as well.
Hmm.
So when I advance to higher levels in teaching French, I minimize my use of even English in the
English.
class.
Yeah.
You know, even when I am explaining the grammatical rules to the students, I would
Hmm.
say the whole thing in French,
Hmm.
so that they are used to listening the whole thing in French. It's
Hmm.
only when they'll be used to listening to it, they'll be used to speaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I cannot expect them to express themselves in French when I myself am not expressing.
Yeah.
Right? So it's only for it in the hands of the teacher who takes the student out of the comfort zone very slowly,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I
And
agree.
makes him or her acclimatized to the language.
And to add to what you said, I think this is something that I have noticed. If you refer to a bilingual dictionary, something like Hindi to English or Bengali to English or vice versa, in those dictionaries, you don't have access to collocations.
We don't, yeah.
And collocations, I mean, I have seen people use words that don't go together.
Yeah.
And if one keeps referring to those dictionaries, I think it just becomes more difficult after a point. Because if you refer to the CEFR levels, A1, A2, and so on, so on and so forth, B1, C1, B2, C1, and C2, collocation, where collocations are suggested and all, they if you want to come across collocations, you need to first of all be mindful. You need to be careful, like actively, somewhat like looking for. You need to be actively looking for them, but also you need to refer to dictionaries that actually have those. And I have not seen any bilingual dictionary have collocations. And secondly, I just find daily use sentences that you come across on YouTube, translations. I came across this the other day, where in Hindi we have something called "Zyada bhav mat khao,"
Okay.
and bhav is what? Bhav is to another use for the word bhav is bhaiya iska
Price.
bhav kitna hai? Price. Yes,
Yeah.
bhav kitna hai? So the translation, the person who created that video mentioned that the translation for "Zyada bhav mat khao" is "Don't act so pricey."
Okay. Oh my God. Pricey is costly.
Yeah, don't act so costly. I I I I could not figure out what they were trying to say, so I had to look it up. Don't act so pricey. Google didn't know anything. Can you believe
Yeah,
that?
it won't. It won't because it's just very personal usage.
It's a very weird thing to
It's
say.
an invention. It is an invention.
Yeah, it should be something like "Don't be so arrogant. Don't
Don't throw
show off so much."
tantrums.
Yeah, don't show off so much attitude, something like that. But then "Don't be so pricey" is just odd. Yeah, and
Honestly, Nilanjan, when a language like English, it's universal language, we
yeah,
have to accept the fact that it goes in the hands of many people. Many people have access to it, and whenever a language, you see, whenever a language is used by so many users, so
hmm,
many speakers, there will be alterations. People will bend the rules. People
yeah,
will make their own versions of things and come up with bizarre stuff. So I always ask my students to cross check, please cross check
yeah,
it before buying it, before including it in your speech. Just check
yeah,
it once. I
yeah,
even I have had students saying stuff like, well, I'm pretty used to this habit. It's more of a daily soap to me. And I'm like, what is the daily soap? to you? And he's like, yeah, this is a habit, and it's a daily soap for me. I was like, a daily soap is what you call a drama, like a TV serial. And he's like, sir, I thought daily soap is something that you do every day. So again, you see, these things do exist, but they have to be eradicated. I eradicate it right away. With the moment I come across something like this,
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
blank refuse such kind of a use.
Yeah, this is unacceptable. We can't
Unacceptable,
accept it
yeah.
in
Yeah.
English.
Off limits.
Yeah. So, based on your experience teaching, people from all over the country and maybe all over the world,
Yeah, yeah, I do teach students from the world.
okay, what would you say are three of the most common errors that you have seen students make?
3 errors that students make all around the world in English or
At least in India. At least in India, in English.
Okay, okay. Um, this is a nice one. This is a nice question, first of all. I'll go randomly. I won't. Yeah, stuff that I notice. Students who use a native language as a reference, they fail to follow the concept which is taught to them in their regional language. For example, whenever we teach any student the concept of ability, that is can. Okay. If I'm using a reference language, for example, Hindi, I'll explain can as sakta hai. Okay.
Yeah.
So I expect the student to remember that whenever if in his thinking language he's thinking of a sentence like वो मुझसे झूठ नहीं बोल सकता है. I expect the student to quickly remember that the sakta hai is translated to can in English, and this is the concept that would help me making this sentence. The biggest mistake students do is they remember how can is used, but they don't know when can is used.
Okay.
So remembering how this concept relates to your own regional language, when they forget it, this is the biggest mistake. Remembering the rules, but not remembering when to use the tense.
Okay.
Another thing that I find problematic in students that learn the language is whatever they're learning, whatever, for example, vocabulary, for example, the vocabulary that they're using, they do not include it in their speech.
Okay.
The words that they learn, they do not necessarily express them. Again, is the problem with the comfort zone. They don't feel comfortable with those words. They know those words. They are like, oh, this is a nice word. I could use it. I knew it. So a constant effort of including that word into their speech, this is absent. Again, this stops progress. Knowing things, even after knowing things, if you fail to use them, this is sheer, dumbness, I would say. This is sheer dumbness. I have a lot of information with me, yet I cannot use it.
Yeah.
Then I would label myself foolish, right? This is the second mistake that students do, that they do not include what they learn in their daily life. Third is not keeping track of mistakes.
Okay.
You see,
very true.
Students, they just like the language grows on us, no, mistakes also tend to grow on us.
Yeah.
If somebody has what do you call it, a pronoun verb conflict, a pronoun verb agreement problem, someone who doesn't know this particular verb conjugation would go with this pronoun, and he generally makes problems and errors with ses in present tense, you will notice this ses throughout his writing or throughout his speaking.
Yeah.
Even if you highlight it once, if you see the student repeating this mistake, that's because he's not consciously noting down that mistake in his head, that I need to remove this from my set of mistakes. So consciously keeping a note of what kind of mistakes you do, then deleting them on purpose is what makes you progress in the language.
I've seen that one. I've seen that personally, not related to pronouns, but related to saying I did not, and then the past tense of the verb.
Yeah, the second form.
Yeah, many of my classmates back in school used to say, I did not came yesterday, I did not ate yesterday, and so on and so forth. And when a teacher pointed out the mistake, they did not, note it down in their heads as you.
They don't note it down. They might as well say the exact sentence that the teacher corrected. They would say the correct sentence, but they won't give their mind a reminder. Okay, you made this mistake again. Come on, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, they keep
Stuff like
making
this.
that mistake.
This is yet another
Yeah.
error. Okay.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this session today. It was great talking to you. It was a pleasure.
It was
Absolutely.
my pleasure too, Nilanjan. I wish you all the luck with your new YouTube page. I
Thank you
hope
so
you
much.
come up with a lot of educational content and interesting
Thank you
stuff,
so much.
because there's a pool of students out there who are looking forward to people who have something to contribute to their journey, and I'm sure you'll be a ray of hope for them.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
That means a lot.